Okay, so we are officially live here for our weekly Polar Community AMA. For those who do not know myself, if you're new here, new to the community, new to AMAs, I'm Shib Bear, the community leader here, part of the team that helps us kind of gauge that branch between the core team and the community itself. These weekly AMAs, including this one, are going to cover current events that we're currently dealing with Polar, some of the future implementations and the things that we are working on going forward, as well as various questions from the community via either here or the AMA question tab that is in our channels on Discord. If you are unable to speak or otherwise not willing to get up at 2 a.m. or whatever time it might be in your time zone, feel free to put questions out in there. I'll answer them as clearly as I can on here, kind of multitask through it, and we can move forward through that. That being said, once I get through the introductory stuff, I'll be taking questions from the community, so feel free. I generally have a lot of the same speakers, but I'd love to have new speakers up here, your input, questions, whatever might be going on in your head, that's what we're here for. So without further ado, I'll address this pretty clearly, right? So there's been a little bit of a down week in DeFi and crypto and in Polar itself. So what does that all mean for us? I mean, big picture, nothing really. We're still building on our end. We're still growing our community. We're still getting the node part down. We're still working on the various implementations of additional revenue stream for the future. So what happens in DeFi is people generally will get hyper-focused on the daily, which is okay. That's very much so appropriate in certain circumstances. But just be clear that the core team is still out here innovating and working very, very hard to get these next steps implemented so that when we do get out of this little downturn in the markets, we can then rise even above and beyond what the market trends would be ideally. That's going to be what our main goal is here. Navigating the down times is always a little bit trickier than navigating the good times because the concern in the chats or whatever it might be is a real thing, and I do understand the concern, but that's why we're here to talk to you. So feel free to ask questions, jump in. We have the whole Price Talk channel in there. We have my DMs open. We have other members of the team that are willing to guide you through certain things. But my best advice is this is not a 24-hour or a 1-week investment. And if you are orchestrating your investments to be a short-term thing, then the risk then just goes exponentially higher. If you see these investments as a longer-term vision because you believe in the protocol, you believe in the product, you believe in the team, whatever you might believe in there, I think that is where we can truly all come together and be able to build and move forward as we navigate the highs and the lows that come just in crypto itself. If anybody's new to crypto, this is going to happen again. We're going to go down, we're going to go up, we're going to go sideways. Next thing we know, we'll be in a bull market. Everybody in the world will be talking about crypto, and then 6 months later, we'll be down. This is what the world is in crypto. So don't stress. Many of us have been here before, and we're all still happy and healthy and alive and still doing our thing in the space. So additionally from there, a couple things that we are working on for the future adaptations of Polar. So if anybody was in the AMA that Salty had with Spring the other day, he kind of went into a lot of the Polar Guardian aspects that we're building on from there. He went into a little bit about how the correlation of Spring and Polar is, and it's mostly due to Polar Guardian. They're obviously a fork of Polar. I don't really want to go too much into them, but I'd recommend if you're interested, go check out their Discord or AMAs or whatever. Unfortunately, I did not attend the last one. It got moved up, and I'm still on night shift, so I happen to miss it there. But that being said, Polar Guardian is my topic of concern here. This is going to be the first implementation of an additional real revenue stream for Polar itself. I've seen it in the in Twitter, on Discord, like, hey, what are the investments in Polar? What are you guys investing in? If anyone here doesn't know, getting a 10 or 20% APY by staking AVAX is not going to solve the problems of a node protocol or a business itself. That might be great for you personally, but for us to be able to generate real revenue, it's going to have to be bigger and better than that. Hence these additional things that we've talked about in the past and that we'll continue to talk about as we get them closer to launch. First one being Polar Guardian. So we do have the AMA with James Pelton that occurred last week. I know there was a delay in the publication of it, but there's a ton of information that Salty went into in there, and his words on the protocol that are much better than mine because he's the one that's building it, of course. But Polar Guardian intends on becoming a true security measure for DeFi projects, particularly those on the Avalanche blockchain, so that we can help secure different protocols, prevent them from rugging or from being malicious actors from the smart contract level itself. So you can invest in great people, great projects, etc. But humans are flawed, right? So this is a way to implement something that goes beyond the flaws of humans themselves, and it gets into the smart contract, which will prevent them from going in and doing some malicious things that will end up harming investors. One of the examples that Salty used in the James Pelton AMA was, let's say everything's going well with your protocol and you have 1 million supply. If you are wanting a way out where you just want to claim all the supply of your token, they can just create one node that has a 1 million, claim supply, 1 million yield basically, take all of it out, and then it's all gone. All the supply is now taken, right? So it's that simple. Things like Polar Guardian are seeking to prevent those kind of issues moving forward. Also issues like what we saw with UNIV, who I get very, very passionate about. So I don't know if I want to go too much into that today. If any of you have questions on that, feel free to ask during the AMA and I'll get just as passionate about it. But the idea is to eliminate some of these bad actors so that we can then create true stability and true faith in DeFi. That is the next step of everything that we are working for here. Is Polar as a protocol, as a project itself is amazing, but we need to start bringing real changes to this entire space to bring in new investors. Because we are going to still invest in Polar, you and I here. But we need people that don't understand crypto to say, hey, what is preventing this from going bad? That is the key to the next step, and the things like Polar Guardian, and there's a few others out there that are working to help implement that'll allow for that true growth and hopefully expansion into a wider audience of the world, let alone DeFi itself. Obviously, some other things that have been talked about were kind of like VCs, like venture capital funds, consulting things, a play-to-earn game, and obviously the node protocol itself. A lot of that stuff is still a very, very early on work in progress. I can answer some brief questions on the futures of those, but just for example, if we're going to make a good game, not some like scammy money grab game, it takes real time. And we're not Activision, right? So it takes legitimate and real time to produce these things and make them not only marketable, but also functional and fun to play and just fun to engage with from there. So that is something that, various things are going to be implemented into Polar itself, hence why we dropped the node protocol, Polar nodes. Now we're just Polar itself. The nodes won't be left behind. I can sit here in front of you all and say, every time that the core team is talking about some of these future adaptations, they're always talking about how to integrate the nodes, the node holders into them. So fear not, you guys are not going to get left behind here. It's just going to increase the ability for us to continue this node protocol efficiently. And that is what we're all truly looking for in this space, is actual efficiency, actual sustainability, and actual growth moving forward. Or else you end up burning out like some of the other protocols have. Very, very journalistically, what does that mean for Polar itself? Quite simply, think of Polar as like a pie. And in this pie, you're going to have the nodes, you're going to have Polar Guardian, you're going to have the VC, you're going to have consulting, you're going to have play to earn game, you're going to have all these other things involved in it. So Polar in itself is that entire pie, and then there's all these different slices of revenue from each different protocol. Those all integrate and help each other. So if the nodes need some help, maybe the game revenue, there's a revenue share system with that that'll feed into the node protocol, for example, or vice versa, whatever it might be. They're all a part of the same end game so that everything under Polar can be efficient and grow very organically and very naturally. That's kind of the biggest highlights there. I know it's kind of a 1,000-foot view of some of that stuff, and there's a ton more information coming out on Polar Guardian. I know the core team is working on various Medium articles that are going to go into details on different things, and I don't want to necessarily go too much into things that they haven't said publicly, because my position is to obviously give you guys their word and their position. So we'll let them kind of get that information out there, and then it'll be my job to bridge that over to you. But questions on it are great. And at the end of the day, all these different adaptations, innovations, growth protocols that are being built are here to protect us as investors, the protocol itself, the nodes, etc., and really allow us to grow and become the leader of this DeFi industry. I'll just kind of broaden it from there. I used to say we're going to be the leader of a node industry. We've gone beyond that. We're seeking to become, one of the best projects or protocols that is in DeFi. And then from there, who knows? Maybe we'll bring in mainstream, right? But one step at a time, we need to start getting these taken care of. delays happen, I'll go into that briefly as well. I know a lot of us were expecting more information on Polar Guardian last week. They're trying to do this very, very legitimately. So, in order to do that, as a business, there are sometimes little speed bumps as you're navigating different things that you do need to take into account as you are building your protocol. So, little delays are perfectly fine and perfectly acceptable, you know, as long as they're not unreasonable, so to speak, and they're not without vision. So, if it happens, it happens. Delays are a thing. It's not the end of the world, but we do need to voice what is going on so you guys understand. Hey, yeah, so what? Information's delayed a couple days, but we're not gone. We're still here working with you and building the entire protocol itself. That's kind of the highlights there. So a lot of this platform for this week, there wasn't a ton to come out for me to display to you guys elsewise, but as I kind of brainstorm through all that, I do have some more notes of other things I want to touch here as we move forward, but I'll begin taking questions and navigating through them. I have a feeling a lot of the questions are going to progress naturally into what we are looking to answer anyway. So these two people on stage with me, if you guys just tuned in, I was just trying to bring people up while I was getting it all set up, just so we can chill for a minute, but they have questions, so I left them up here so I have to kick them away. So, without further ado, Zindori, you've already unmuted. What can I help you with, man?
Hey man, yeah, so I got on Spring Node's AMA where Salty was and heard, just a sneak peek of what Polar Guardian is. And, I have a few questions. Are we gonna get into that now?
Oh, yeah, sure. Whatever I can answer, I will. I don't even have all the full information on that, so bear with me. But, if you have a question I can answer it, I'll be more than happy to do so.
So what I heard is that Salty is planning on securing the dangerous points of the contract. Do you have any info on what that like means?
Yeah, so that was kind of what I touched on earlier. So, like, let's say you have a malicious actor, a malicious person in your, developer team or whatever. If they want to claim all of the supply at one time, they can create one node, have it accumulate 1 million of your token, take it all, and then it's gone from there. There's no more supply. Just like that easily, that quickly, that maliciously. So the idea of Polar Guardian would be to prevent those kind of malicious actions from happening at the smart contract level itself. Because humans, ethical humans, can even make mistakes and even get put into a position where they could be compromised. So the ideal to that is that you take that whole human element out. This is the contract. This is what it allows you to do. And this is quite frankly what it doesn't allow you to do. And especially as time progresses and as Polar Guardian progresses, Salty and the team there will find even more things to prevent the exploit side of it, and it'll just continue to grow and develop until ideally it's a very legitimate and sought out program that new projects are looking to get. Say, hey, I want to be protected by this. It's good marketing, but it also prevents any potential for a negative consequence of a malicious actor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, makes total sense. And compared to what other things like the pro we got like um going on in the future, do you see like Polar Guardian as the biggest achievement that Polar can make, or maybe in top three, or like what's your personal opinion?
Yeah, so I think Polar Guardian is going to be one of the first one that legitimizes us beyond the node industry. So we're very well known as a node protocol. I think Polar has very well established themselves as one of the top node protocols out there, if not the top, depending who you ask, right? But this will allow us to then branch not only as a top tier node protocol, but as a top tier project and a top tier business, really. And the more things that we implement into our business strategy, the better and more realistic that is going to sound for everyone else who's looking to invest. So I think that just helps legitimize us. Polar Guardian is going to be probably the first thing that goes live. So it is very important in the aspect that it'll be earlier on than some of the other stuff. Like I said, a good designed game takes a long, long time to figure out and to get right. But something like Polar Guardian is more so what we already have. We have the developers, we have a team that can implement this and get it live and just make it as efficient as clean as possible. So this is going to be, I'm gonna say it's the most important because it's the first one that's going to branch us a little bit away from being just the node industry itself.
Awesome. Thanks for answering. And last question. I have two people that I would like to describe Polar Guardian to, and like you said, you guys may sell the service to mainstream or NFTs or whatever. Um, it, can we get like a description of what Polar Guardian is in the future? I'm not saying now or in a few weeks or something like that. And that's my last question.
Yeah, of course. So we had that great Medium article that was prepared and put out there for the V3. I would expect something similar to that for Polar Guardian and as well as every other adaptation that we continue to grow and innovation that we put out there for the space. So it's very clear, very detailed, very easy to distribute. It's just a PDF. Say, hey, read this over. If you have any questions, pop into the Discord. We'll answer them directly. But I think that's going to be the best route of getting this information out in the most efficient and clean way.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Chip.
Cool. Hey, I appreciate you, man. Good to talk to you again. Move you back to the audience. Ian Soph. I don't know how to. I always end up not being able to pronounce people's names, so I do apologize. But Ian Soph sounds pretty good to me. How you doing, man?
That's correct. I'm okay. Thank you for having me, Shib. And I just had a basic question or two. Uh, I've been a long-term investor in the project, accumulating some nodes, and I unfortunately was under, the, just the recipient of bad fortune. I had two of my nodes were stolen from my wallet that I had, and I was just wondering, like, and I may know there may not be any type of, criteria or implementation of this now, but will there be any type of, higher like security measures or being able to perhaps, if that were to happen, to burn that node and to, go and perhaps replace that, or like any type of insurance or security measures that may be in place for our nodes, and they all are valuable assets that we don't want to lose any of our value and equity in.
Yeah, so that's a great question there, and we've seen unfortunately a ton of people get compromised via different scams or different implementations of again more malicious actors, right? Kind of what I talked about a little bit earlier, but in a different aspect. So before I kind of go into the specifics of Polar itself, if you guys do not have a hardware wallet, a ledger, or whatever you decide to use, please get one. Invest the time, invest the money, get one there, secure your wallet, make it so nothing can happen unless you are the one authorizing it. What is the only negative to that is the ledger for mobile on MetaMask is not active yet, but I will take the fact that I can't, trade big assets that I have in my ledger account from my phone, and I'll take the security over that every day of the week. So I'd highly recommend getting a hardware wallet that's going to help protect you in the future. Also, never interact with suspicious links, with people DMing you saying, hey, I'm Polar Support, I'm here to help you, because they're not here to help you. They're here to steal your assets. They're not a part of our team. We will never, ever, ever, ever send you a link like that. We will never DM you first. There's some people that are in, constant conversation with me in DMs, so maybe I'm talking back and forth with them, but I don't send them links to a website or to whatever. We had a very malicious airdrop kind of scam that came through to Polar last week. I think everybody got DMs for that. It was terrifying, right? So we're trying to get in front of that. We had to ban hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these bots that were just named Polar with our logo as their PFP. It was a real problem. So first and foremost, you're in charge of your security. Make yourself secure. Get yourself situated with a hardware wallet or the ledger. don't interact with links, read up on additional security measures in crypto because this is like the internet in 1999. People are out here to scam you. There's a lot of unknowns out here, and quite frankly, if it's too good to be true, it is. So if you get a weird DM saying that you won something, you didn't. If you click on that link, you're going to win all of your assets getting stolen. So things like that, keep them in mind. Keep your security paramount. Now, what can we do on our end? That's for a little bit there, we were refunding people. I'm going to be very open about that. It was one of our founders, Ian I'll shout him out. He's truly a good human being. So we were trying to help people out the best that we could. As we started doing that, guess what happened? These scammers would just come in, say, hey, my node got stolen or my Polar got stolen. Here's the wallet address. And then we'd refund them and they'd leave the server. So then they were now beginning to scam us as well. So it's literally like a running in a circle of these freaking scammers that are just out here that have no mercy. They're going to ruin it for everybody very, very quickly. So in the immediate, what I can definitely say we can do is if you open up a ticket, send us your AVAX wallet address. Obviously, never give your security phrase to anybody for any reason. No reason to do that. But if you send us your Avalanche wallet address, we can go look at that transaction and we can blacklist the wallet that stole your nodes. That will prevent them from being able to cash out those nodes in the future, which is at least, it made it, not worth their time, I guess, but it still leaves you in a very bad spot. So open a ticket there. Unfortunately, there's been some issues where we cannot just refund everybody anymore, but open the ticket. Let us, talk. I know I've personally given somebody some Polar to try to help them through it. A lot of us are good people, and we want to help, but we cannot just keep doing, this as well. Particularly, I've seen a lot of people who have very low sense of security in this space. You need to educate yourself and make it so that you are able to secure your own assets before even I would be comfortable personally giving some people things back to help them out there. So keep that stuff in mind. It's a little bit of everything. Security is so important in this space, and we work so hard to try to get where we are. Please get a hardware wallet. Please, keep yourself as informed and secure as possible.
Yes. Hello. Yes, that sounds like it. You said to create a ticket and that would blacklist that wallet. I believe I might have made a ticket prior.
Yeah, just create a ticket and say, hey, my nodes got stolen, whatever. I know it's not a ton you guys can do, but here's the TXN hash, or here's my Avalanche wallet address. Can we blacklist this bad actor at the very least? And we'll do that. We can do that for it pretty easily. We're more than happy to blacklist the scammers.
Okay, that sounds like a basic first step. And thank you for that information. Hopefully, as I have made those security measures in the present for the future to not be susceptible to any of these type of malicious actors, I just value that information and that help, and I just hope that I am, able to, redeem myself from, from that tragic hit.
Yeah, I feel you, man. And I'll look over your ticket as well when we get in there, and we'll talk there. Like I said, a lot of us are, for better or worse, we are truly big-hearted people, and I hate hearing stuff like this. So I'll try to chat with you a bit and see the things we can do. But, these people are just so malicious that they've even made our generosity come back to bite us, which is terrible. It's a terrible thing. But open that ticket and we'll chat in there a little bit.
Yes, thank you for your time and information.
Appreciate you, man. I know I just talked a ton about it. Security is everything in this space. Please do not follow links. Please follow all security measures. Quite frankly, even using it on mobile is kind of a risk in this world. So keep yourself safe, read up on it, become educated, be a leader in the security aspects of the space. Unfortunately, I don't know who is next, so I'm just going to start taking people in here. Predzil86. PredZLDP86. Whenever you tune in here, you should be live. You might have to accept the invite, though. Pred, you around? Sometimes it does take a second to load in, so just in case, I'll give him a few seconds and kind of filibuster this a little bit. And as we're doing this and as we're waiting here, for those who are not aware, every Tuesday, same time, same place, here in Discord, 25 minutes ago right now, every Tuesday, community AMAs. So be here, share it around. We're a bigger audience this week than last week already. We're up to 219. I think next week we should be pushing 275, 300, 3,000, whatever we want to do. We have 12,800 people in this server, so I think the sky should only be the limit. Unfortunately, Pred Z, you did not come in here, so I'm not going to remove you from the speaker, but I am going to accept Rocket. You are live.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. What's up?
I wanted to ask a little bit more about something done lightly a few minutes ago with regard to the pending projects. And not necessarily projects individually, but as a whole, does the team view each of these other projects as separate entities from the node protocol? And what I mean by that is there are certain other groups protocols that are kind of shifting away from nodes in some sense, but they're making node holders a little bit more like shareholders, if you will. And so then the other projects that they're incubating are then paying out rewards to the investors. Is that kind of the model that's been talked about or foreseen, or is it really going to be a little bit separate where the nodes are going to continue to function as they can and revenue will kind of be shared where it needs to make sense across the board?
Yes, that's a great question. That has come up in conversations pretty regularly with the team here of how to exactly implement these follow-up protocols while still keeping our node holders taken care of and our family taken care of. So I think it's a little bit of both. So legally speaking, it's hard to say that you're a shareholder, especially if we become like a legitimate business, because that just complicates things on the legal side. But the idea is that we can take all these different implementations and allow them to all feed into each other. Like I said, it's like one big pie. So the nodes are a piece, Port Guardian's a piece, the VC, the consulting, the game aspect. They're all pieces of the same pie that help support each other going on. Now, I think and this isn't necessarily speaking about Polar itself, so don't quote me on this one. This is just me thinking out loud. The way that the most successful protocols will work is it will become almost like a revenue share system where, we maybe whatever it might be, there just has to be a payout via the revenue share of the other protocols that are developed, the other business aspects that are developed, because that is a true way to sustainability. Salty's talked about it. I've talked about it. Right now, these node protocols are straight Ponzi economic theory, and I say it every time. I hate using the word Ponzi economic because it sounds like a scam, but it really isn't. If you think about it, the world is pretty much Ponzi economic. If there is no demand for the dollar and people were not circulating the US dollar, it would become worthless, right? So for right now, as nodes are here and as they are today, we do need people to be creating nodes in order to benefit the protocol itself. Ideally, we have these other aspects of business projects that will help feed and help support this node protocol as well as each other. So instead of it being totally based on the node industry, the node creation, maybe 50% of it is based on node creation, for example, or 20% or whatever it might be. Those are just hypothetical numbers, of course. But I think a revenue share model or revenue share theory is a much more secured one, and it does allow these nodes to survive and be a realistic thing for investors. At that point, you can think very, very long term, because there are other implementations going on behind it. It's not quite as fragile, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thanks for the detailed thoughts on that. I appreciate it. And you brought up something else that I've been thinking a lot about, right? The whole long-term view. Know that can't guarantee, can't commit to anything, but is there among the team, is there among the community a vision of we want this project to last for, X number of years, or anything like that, where it's it's a big, huge goal and it's going to require a lot of work and these things, but is there kind of a vision that everybody carries around that?
Yeah, but it's not specific. So they're not saying, hey, we want to be around for 365 days or for 30 years, right? So it's more so the vision is always long term. Every conversation I've ever been a part of where the core team is chatting back and forth. The short-term aspects of it are like, this is how we implement these things that are then going to build up to the long-term aspects of it. So at the end of the day, they're always thinking long-term, and they don't put a timeline on their vision there either, which I think is good, because if they were talking about, we want to last another 6 months, for example, that wouldn't be a good thing. That would be a very bad thing. I don't think it'd be a healthy business model. But they're just saying we need to build, and as we're building these are going to then create a more official business, really. And once you start getting that business mindset beyond just the project mindset, I feel like that expands the horizon indefinitely. And there could be speed bumps along the way, like I've kind of mentioned earlier. Things don't always go as planned, but it's fine. Even during times of adversity, this core team and our community team and our community itself, are 99% positive. And we do see a couple negative Nancy's pop into the Discord every once in a while. It is what it is. I can affirm that the majority of our community are in this for the long term. And I know the entirety of our core team and the entirety of our community team are in this for the long term. So we don't talk about short term in the sense of we need to survive 3 months or 4 months or 6 months. We're just out here trying to build for the real future and make this a legitimate business rather than just a simple protocol in the DeFi space.
That's great. And just from a practical standpoint, I've been in Polar long enough to see some different cycles, and have gotten to witness how the team responds to various aspects in the market and sentiment and all the rest. And I've always been personally very impressed by how the development, the developers, the team, everybody kind of puts the community first. But from a standpoint of anybody who might be newer to the protocol, anybody who is considering joining, or even recently joined and is now worried about the market dip for the moment, what would you say are like some practical things that the community can do to just continue supporting the protocol and what we're doing? Because it's been clear that one of the differentiators of Polar really is this community, and it's just an awesome community. Of even just looking across various Discord channels that I'm in, the way the community interacts is so much more uplifting and positive. It's measurable in that sense. But really the heart of the question is, just general ideas, tips for the whole community on how we can all help support even when the market is dipping, knowing that it's going to come back.
Yeah, so I do try to refrain from giving people actual financial advice, because even though I do have an economics educational background, I've been in real world business. That's not my job. I'm not going to tell people necessarily how to invest. But I will say that the health for the protocol, as I mentioned before, does come via the creation of nodes. So compounding does help the protocol. If you are able to, without hurting your life circumstance, for example, I'll be very clear. Support your family first. You're yourself second, right? Because without you or your family, you can't do anything. So make sure you're not going to wear yourself thin. Don't take a loan out, by the way, to invest into DeFi. I don't love that. I hate that idea. I'm going to be very open about it. Some people find great success in it. I think it's a terrible idea. Never invest more than you are absolutely willing and able to lose totally. So that's first and foremost. If you're in a point where you're comfortable and you're in for the long term of this protocol itself, and you want to be a part of this for as we move forward and have the most aspects to potentially get the most return long term, I would highly recommend compounding is the best way to do it. Even if you're not putting new money into the protocol all the time, taking rewards, getting new nodes, it does increase emissions, of course, but you are benefiting the protocol as we are now building these other aspects. And it gives it a little bit of a stability effect until we get these other things launched. And I'm probably more transparent than some other people in different projects that others might be involved in out there, but that is truly what will help the protocol itself. But like I said, do not sacrifice yourself or your family. Take care of yourself, get food on the table, get your house in order, and then if you're able to and you're in a position that you want to, that's how I would best suggest to help out the protocol. And just from a personal thing, every Saturday is when I create nodes. Every single Saturday, like clockwork. And that's just what I do. I help give back to the Polar, not only the community, but the team that has helped me so much and helped me get to a position where my entire life is different than where it was in January, and I'm forever grateful for that. So if I can support the protocol itself on the base level, on the fundamental level, I mean, I'm very much so going to do that every step of the way. So that'd be my suggestion. I know don't want to give people exact financial advice, but that's what I think is a good thing for us.
Nice. And if I can just build on that, I think the other important thing is just kind of maintaining that positivity. You see it in the Discord, right? And you see it out on Twitter and all around, but there's kind of a difference if you see, how we interact. And I think that attracts other investors as well, and just continues to support the folks that are already in to not to give into that, fear when things take a downturn. But it's obviously non-financial. It's a little more touchy-feely.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to say thanks.
You're good, man. Good. Good, you're good. I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh, I was just saying thanks. I appreciate it. I'll step down now.
All right, cool. Appreciate you, man. So I'll go into that just briefly. A lot of people here can attest to this. I don't dislike when people are asking questions. Trust me, I prefer us to ask questions and want to do our own research. And even if you're feeling a little weird, I think that's a very good and healthy thing because, like I said, I do have a financial background in some aspects, and you do need to have questions and understand things fully. But that is a real thing. Psychologically, if there is a true negative vibe going on in the Discord because there's certain community members that just want to make themselves visible for it, that's not good. If I'm brand new and I'm popping into that Discord, I'm popping right out immediately. I'm not playing with that game. So if it's a true concern, make it known, scream it from the rooftops, etc. But as many people here can attest, my DMs are opened and I respond to these DMs. I can't even tell you how many people have DM'd me this past week. Hey man, the token's down a little bit. What's your feeling? How you feeling here? And I can let them speak for what I say every time. And it's the same thing I said here, that I still invest in Polar and that it is down. And I'm not going to pretend like it isn't, but the things that are being done behind the scenes as well as in the open are what give me faith and confidence in the protocol itself. And I truly, quite frankly, I stopped investing in new node protocols. The last one, I lost too much money. I just put my money back into the one I believe in, the one that's helped me the most, and that's Polar. So that's my official statement on it, but you can hit me up in DMs. If you have real complaints, my DMs are open as well. I'll have long discussions with people. I'll even jump on a voice call with you if you want. I have no issues doing that there. So I prefer it to be in the DMs. If it's something that you see as like truly malicious and you need to scream it from the rooftops, I would still recommend reaching out to somebody on the team to get a perspective check to make sure you're on the right track. And if you get ignored, then so be it. But I think we all know that I'm more than happy to face a lot of these challenges very directly, very publicly, and very openly. So that's my suggestion there. Psychologically, let's get our investors motivated like always. Sorry, I do kind of ramble in between sometimes, but I love chatting with you guys. So tis what it is. You'll have to deal with me more often now than ever before, and I'll go into that probably towards the end. So I almost said AA Ron, but it's Aaron. Aaron turned BC. You should be live.
Yeah,
What's going on, man?
just got a couple quick questions. I've tried to find all kinds of ways. I know you mentioned it earlier to get a hard wallet. And I've tried to watch YouTube videos and everything, trying to find out a way. Every time I've tried to purchase one, it's always in euros, and just wondering if you know how that I can pay with USD, or I tried with my credit card, but it was still saying euros, so it blocked it every time.
Are you going?
I didn't know if there were a way around that or what. I'm going to their official website, to Trezor's official website.
Okay. So I'm going to jump on. So personally, again, I am definitely not a representative of Ledger, but if they want to talk, hit me up, of course. I'm going to go on there now. I just jumped on the website. I see for a Ledger Nano X, US $149. That's what I see on my app. I just opened it up on my phone. Do you have like a VPN on or something?
Yeah.
So maybe that's where you run into an issue, is it's pulling data from your VPN. And if I had to guess, you're somewhere that uses the euro in your VPN. So that might be what's going on. If you were to turn that off and purchase the ledger with your actual, or even change your VPN to Philadelphia or Dallas or Chicago or whatever you want to do, I'm sure it'll be back to the U.S.
Okay, so it's just my VPN probably causing the issue.
That's what I would assume. If it's going to read your IP address somewhere in the UK or whatever, then it's going to use their local currency.
Okay, and I'm kind of new to Discord and all that, and was just wondering. I know I've seen all kinds of messages. You'll never direct message, first and all this. So how can we tell if, I guess, say if somebody else sees a message on there and tries to help you out, but you're not sure if it's malicious or not? Best practice just to delete it and block them, or what? How do you do it?
Yeah, so whenever I would get DMs or whatever I suggest for you, one, I would suggest turn your DMs off from server so that you cannot get these malicious DMs. But we are not going to DM you first, ever, for anything, especially particularly relating to support or whatever. If you use that word in Discord, support, or I need help, you're immediately going to get a DM from a scammer, immediately. If I'm in the Discord saying, hey man, send me your AVAX address so I can look into that, you DM me from Discord. So when you click on my name, it'll have roles assigned, and it'll say community leader, for example. Or if you click on Salty's name, it'll say core team member, lead dev. Like it'll have the roles that we are for who we are. If we do not have those roles in Discord, then it's a fake account that's trying to replicate what we are. So DM me first, make sure that I have the role in Discord, click on that, and go right from the source. That is the safest and most efficient way to do it. And, we do help people via DM, but I'm not going to DM you first if you ask for help.
And where did you say that shows up as? Like if somebody direct messaged me and it pops up, say your name, where will it show your information at?
Yeah, so it won't in the DM. So you have to go through the Discord. Let's say you and I are chatting back and forth, and you click on my photo on the Discord chat itself in Polar. It'll tell you what my roles in Polar are. And for you, it'll say member as yours, and for me, it'll say member and community leader, and my name is Blue. So you can then look at me and say, okay, this is, you can't just give yourself a different role. We have to assign that, or the core team has to assign that. So that is a way to make sure that they are correct people. I'm telling you, if you get a DM first, it's not us. We're not going to DM you first. Just simply not.
Right.
Delete it, block it, move on, and try to take a screenshot and report it, because I'll ban that person from the server instantaneously.
Okay. All right. That's pretty much all I had. Thanks.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Hopefully you get that hardware wallet figured out, because that is a very, very important thing. If anyone just joined, secure your NFTs, secure your nodes, secure your tokens, whatever. Get a hardware wallet. Choose whatever one you prefer. I use the Ledger. I like it. It's very easy. I secure a MetaMask account with it. I could use any tokens that I want, as well as any blockchains that I'd like. But I just have to manually, with this little fob that's currently in my hand, say that yes, I do want to make that transaction. And I don't feel bad shilling Ledger or whatever hardware wallet. I'll do it every day of the week. Keep yourself secure. What's going on, Sam, man?
That's a easy one to pronounce for you.
Yeah.
Hey man, just wanted to say thank you for everything. I've only been in a part of the community for I'm pushing 3 weeks this coming Wednesday. I'm on Node 7 and very just blessed and happy to be here. And even with, me buying what was like over 250 at the time to start, I'm still very happy, feel very blessed, very excited, and love how you guys are handling everything. So that's just my compliment before my question.
Hey, I appreciate you too, man. And welcome to the fam. I know it's been a few weeks, but that puts you right around the time of the V3 launch, just a little bit after. So, yeah, there's been a little bit of a down in price, but I think our future is still only the brightest.
I totally agree. Yeah, it was literally right after it launched that I came in. My first question is, I'm just curious about as far as if there's any marketing being done to just get Polar out there, just the name, and yeah, that's pretty simple. Just wondering if you guys are doing any marketing to get exposure to Polar.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Jans has the lead member that's kind of in charge of a lot of the marketing stuff. Obviously, Show is the marketing person, and I'm a community leader, so I do some of that aspect, and I'm the one that does the AMAs or whatever. Not a huge thing there, but that's just part of the different layers that we go through. So what I've kind of personally seen is like we've done AMAs with paid influencers, and we've done videos with paid influencers and stuff like that, and our outreach has gone to a point that those don't generally move the needle. And I haven't really talked too much about this with Yanta yet, but even, our last big person that we did an AMA with, which was a great AMA, it was on Twitter Spaces, and I thought it was, it was cool for me to be able to talk to them, and I think it was very good information that was put out there. But I don't really know if it moved the needle for us itself. So I think as we move forward into this business mindset, it's going to have to turn into like a bigger picture marketing push rather than just a social media push, because social media is incredible and it's amazing and it does allow you to reach the entire world. But until we get more people into DeFi that are interested in nodes, for example, I think that's going to be our limitations that we have to go through. And quite frankly, the next little bull market that happens and more money gets put into DeFi, we'll have a natural influx at the same time. But I think we do need to get a little bit deeper in our marketing and find a way to truly get information out to a broader audience itself. I kind of like Twitter because you're able to just use hashtags and really reach out pretty quickly, but there needs to be some sort of difference there. And I think on the ground level, the grassroots level, all these people that are in here, 214 listening to the AMA, 12,806 in our server itself. We need to just share the information, be very transparent, say, hey, come check out the Discord, ask questions. We're more than happy to help, talk you through it. Our Discord's pretty busy 24/7 at this point, so there's always someone in here to chat with you. So I think a lot of that grassroots push is going to be a very organic way to continue our growth and allow us to continue this demand a little bit further. As Polar Guardian does come into play, I think that's going to be a significant leap in organic marketing, because we're then going to be known as a different aspect. So Polar Guardian will come out as that security aspect that I talked to earlier, protecting certain projects, right? It'll be protecting their projects at a contractual level. With that, just the name recognition then falls into place. It's like an iPhone to Apple, right? So Apple is the parent company, but we all use iPhones, so it's still supporting the main business. And then if we see something else from Apple, maybe we consider it, for example. So it's kind of like a big picture version of it. So I do think we need to get more broad and expand our outreach a little bit. AMAs are great. Quite frankly, I've told the core team, schedule me every day of the week. I love talking to people. I love just figuring it out and asking questions. But generally, a lot of these AMAs are not really moving our needle like they might have been in January and February, if that answers your question at all.
Yeah, well said. And I mean, additionally, I think, I don't know if it's the salesperson in me, because I'm in software sales, but as soon as I got involved in this project, I've done nothing but just talk to random people in my circle about Polar, trying to get them to buy nodes. And I think as an investor and like everyone else here, we all should share that responsibility in speaking to everyone that you care about, that you would want to be able to benefit from this. And that's something that I've proudly been able to do. And I can tell you I've gotten more than 10 people that didn't know about Polar that have nodes today from 2 weeks ago personally. And I think that's something that we should all try to encourage and speak to people to hop on the project for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of the way to do it, that grassroots approach.
Right. My next question, and really actually my last, is like, obviously, with the down swing with price, a lot of it does have to do with how AVEX is doing / how Bitcoin is doing, right? Both are affected. I just have a question in terms of if Bitcoin doesn't hold support here in this general area, and we trend towards that lower 32, 33K range, which I think I'm pretty confident that's where we bounce back up. How do you think that would affect our price action? Obviously, I mean, I think it would bring us down, but where do you think our supports lie as far as our price action?
Yeah, so I've talked to different strategical people and different, technical analysis people. I don't think it's as easy to get a grasp on this for the node protocols itself and for the smaller market cap things. And if you want to think like back in 2018 and 2019, 2020, etc., if Bitcoin went down by 10%, for example, altcoins would go down by 30% or 40%, and vice versa. If Bitcoin went up by 10%, these altcoins would double somehow, right? So that's a difference in market caps, the difference of kinds of money that flow into various sizes of these industries. So it's very hard for me to say, hey, a natural support via technical analysis for Polar as a token is this. I think we are truly like a supply and demand aspect. So our liquidity pair is AVAX, it's Avalanche. So as AVAX goes down, it does create somewhat of a negative price impact, of course, and as AVAX goes up, it creates a positive price impact. So I think if it were to go down, if it went down to your theoretical 33,000 Bitcoin, what is that, like another 10-15% down from where it is now or so, something like that, or 10%ish. So that would probably create somewhat of a stressor on the entire DeFi industry, to be perfectly honest, and I don't know if Polar would be excluded from there. But I will say, as we've seen the team do before, as everyone was crashing down the last couple of days, the core team then changed their distribution aspects and then did some different kind of things to bring in more support to the protocol itself. And then we were having green days while others were having red days. Now we're both, struggling a little bit this week. All of us are. It just kind of is what it is. But I think there are ways you can manage it from a business aspect and allow it to at least get through the harder times in certain ways. And that's going to be our job there, is to figure out those things. But I think big picture is still going to trend very positive. We're all talking about bear markets and all that stuff, which we've been in since, quite frankly, November, in my very humble opinion. One day, though, it's just going to flip, just like it did last May or whatever it was, or March or whatever, who knows when. It just flipped. The next thing we know, it was just skyrocketing, the entire market. So it'll happen again one day. If you are comfortable and able to, I would recommend still continuing to invest in your altcoins and your blue chips and whatever you want to do, because we are very, very low compared to all-time highs. And, again, I'm not going to tell people necessarily how to strategize their investments, but that's what I do, is I personally put money in my altcoins that I like, Polar included, and my blue chips.
Same, man. I'm right there with you. I think most, like, when I'm pushing Polar, is what I call it, when I'm trying to get people to I think a lot of their hesitation is always like, they're just talking about, well, I got to see what Bitcoin does first, because this is where it's at, and, we're in this, like, little spot where we don't know what's about to happen in terms of, is it going to hold the support or not. So I think I just wanted something to combat that and say, hey, like, even if Bitcoin went to 32K, it's not like Polar's going to survive that. If anything, you have if you buy now, you can average down if it were to go down. And in my opinion, I use a lot of my Bitcoin to get into Polar. So if Bitcoin goes down, it just means the return I need is smaller to get back to even. So I think that's the beauty in distributing some of your funds. But I'm right there with you, man. I agree. I'm still purchasing my altcoins that I love, and I'm continue to be buying more nodes no matter what the price is. But yeah, just thanks for answering my questions, and thanks for letting me hop on here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate you, man. Sweet. Great question there. I'm kind of liking the bigger picture questions we've been getting lately. Pretty cool. I was expecting a little bit more on the smaller picture stuff, but this is great. It's been great. Which, hey, if you have smaller picture questions, I'm more than open to answer them, so don't fret about that. HFAS63, you are live.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm happy to be talking in here, and I had a few points mentioned in the protocol ideas that I would like you to actually review, and if possibly, you could answer a few questions of myself and the community, okay? Because first of all, I want to say that I'm very happy to be among the Polar investors, but from a business point of view, we had one strong point of sale, and that was when the price was stable for, I think, a few months, above $2. But recently, we have lost this, and it has been a very serious blow to our, let's say, marketing. And among the things that I mentioned, because I think it is very necessary for the price to get back to $2 because we want to be doing more marketing for this because we want this node strategy to go on. Okay. Uh, I don't want to repeat everything myself, so it would be great if you could just go over them and give your response. I'd appreciate it.
Okay. I'm not entirely sure what your exact question was there, so I do apologize if I missed that. It's kind of muffled out. Did you say you put things in the protocol ideas and you'd like them answered?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, so we do have our advisors that go over that channel very regularly, and then we have a voice call once per week that I'm on there as well to help address a lot of those concerns. So that'll be something that we'll go over here. I think our call is on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, either tomorrow or Friday. So I'll go over all that. In the meantime, if you brainstorm something throughout the week, I have that AMA Questions Weekly channel on the Discord as well. Pop them in there. Sometimes some people will come in there and answer them via text, but I like to answer them here on the AMA as well and allow us to really engage with that fully there. So there's a couple of things there, but we do read those protocol ideas, so don't fret too much there. We are on them as well.
Okay, so I think I should wait, and I hope that we receive a response regarding how the team is responding to the situation, because I don't know about what you guys are thinking, but it is of utmost importance. Okay, that we get our price action back to $2 to $3. Otherwise, everything, every marketing, every let's say propaganda, every talk that you guys gave about the stability of the price is now breached. Okay, we need to fix this as soon as possible. This is what I hope for, and I'm very excited for the future. But in order to be at that future, we need to just get back to our, let's say, normal range as soon as possible. Thank you again for having me, and I look forward to the future with Cobra.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. So I'm kind of just reading over what he mentioned there. So a lot of this stuff, honestly, I've addressed already, but there are things in there that are also things that I've suggested to the core team and that I know the core team looks into is how to kind of navigate taxes and how to encourage people to create nodes and all that stuff there. Those are all very relevant. So none of us blame everything on crypto sentiment or the market's down, so we're down, and that's just the way it is. We know that we need to keep innovating and adapting and growing and overcoming. We have to. If we don't, then we will fall flat on our face every step of the way because we are effectively a small business, and I've been in small business before, and if you just take a break for 6 months or a year, you're going to get left behind, and your whole business is going to go under. And in crypto, that could be 3 weeks. That could be 2 weeks. Like, you need to be constantly on your game, moving forward, moving constantly, and moving as quick and efficient as possible to navigate the downtimes so that we can get back to the good times just as well as everything else. So we do consider all that there, and a lot of the thing in that comment are relatively out of the general scope of what Polar does, but that's fine. So I think the easiest things are just finding a way to create that additional revenue stream and also allow for the opportunity for the markets to grow with us to grow at the same time. So we're not going to defy gravity, but we can at least put ourselves in the best position to win. So I do agree on that. No worries there. All right, Muggles. Get to see this dog at least once a week. What's up, man? Oh, you're muted there, bottom. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. How's it going?
Okay. Question and comment. First of all, I just want to go over what like Sandman and Rocket were talking about what we could do as like a community. The way I found out about Polar was in January. I was just scrolling through Twitter. Someone mentioned Polar nodes, and I think I clicked on it, and then I just stayed with you guys and said, hey, this is going on, so let me just join. So what we could do as a community, you could probably just ask yourself, how did you find out about Polar nodes? And then maybe try to do the same thing, like the way I found about it. Why don't we just try to go to the crypto influencers, go to their web pages, go to their Twitter page, look for comments, and just reply to the comment saying something nice about Polar. You don't have to be mean about other things, or like if someone is disgruntled in Thor, you don't got to be mean to them. But you know, say something like maintenance fees. Oh, Polar doesn't have any maintenance fees, and then just give the @Polar_node so that they can click on it. So what we could do as a community is shill Polar on Twitter ourselves to get them here, just to get them to the Discord, and that's a good marketing strategy. It doesn't cost anybody anything. So everybody should ask themselves how they got into Polar in the first place and try and get people into Polar just like you got into Polar. And most likely it's from one of the social media sites. So that was just basically a comment to add to Sam and Rocket's, thing about how we as a community can help out Polar. Because right now I know that we don't want to say it's Ponzinomics. I know it's bad words, but right now we are until we get this, the Guardian and play to earn game. So what we have to do is we got to help our protocol out ourselves. We're just as much a part of the team as anybody. We don't want this to fail. So this is what we have to do, in my opinion. And maybe you can answer that after this next question, which is, what about the Polar Lottery? Was there something scheduled for Polar Lottery? Is it going to be a few months, a few weeks, or if at all? Because I think a Polar Lottery, where everybody's throwing a few bucks, and then maybe somebody gets an Everest, could help out the token system. And that's it, Chip.
Yeah, so a couple great points there. So the Polar Lottery is something I'm not directly involved with currently, but I do know there was plenty of talk about it, and I believe that there's some work going on behind the scenes for a lot of that. So I'm going to wait for those who are creating it and implementing it to give either myself some information or to put some more information out, maybe in a Medium article or something like that, before I talk too much about all that stuff, because I don't want to mislead anybody here, to be perfectly honest. But I also totally agree with the lottery system. As many of you know, I love me some gambling. So if I can find a way to engage in a lottery, or if they'll let me show a Polar Lottery, for sure I will be doing it. So if that's still on the near future plans, I'd be more than happy to push it accordingly when the time is right. But that being said, your first point there is a true thing. So we kind of talked a little bit earlier about how do we increase marketing, and I kind of went into the grassroots kind of thing. That's the key. And I'm not a huge fan of like Discord raids or Twitter raids, and you'll never see me doing that, but I don't think it's a bad thing for the community itself. I don't think it's helpful if I do it, for example. I think that's, I'm just not a fan of that kind of stuff. But, and do it respectfully, but especially as projects are going through hard times, it's a good way to expand our outreach very naturally, very organically, very professionally. It's just say, hey, we are maybe at an off-topic, or maybe it's an on-topic thing in their general, and then Polar comes up. Because you mentioned, how did we get involved in Polar? And I want to name drop the project that it was in, but I don't know if I should. I respect it too much, unfortunately. But I was in a project back in December, a little bit before that, January, etc., and I lost so much money. And I think off that one alone, I don't want to go into numbers, but I lost a ton of money in there. So the level 10 Discord chat basically turned into just like a troll place. Like we were just trolling, we were chilling, we were hanging out, showing other projects. That's literally how I found Polar. Someone was like, hey, look at this project here called Polar, sometime in January, whatever it was. And I popped up into there, and fast forward, I've been the community leader for Polar for months now. So little things like that. That's how I got involved in the Polar in the beginning. I didn't hear about it on Twitter, but through a very concrete negative time, this little Polar rose appeared up, and here we are.
Yeah, and so let me just add to that a little bit. Like, I was also in one of those projects, 4 letters and a doorbell, which I got hammered on, and then I got into Polar. But if you go to like Vapor Nodes or Thor, and you're seeing 1% gains for and like 1 point something for an Odin, you could just say something on Twitter that, hey, we got 3.33 on an Everest. What are you doing with an Odin? And also try to bring them in, since the Thor token works with Polar. I don't know how many people actually know that outside of our protocol. Like, they could take their tokens and buy Polar with it. So we got to let them know that they can do that. And instead of them getting 1.7%, they could be getting 3.3%. So it's obviously, we're not lying. We're telling them the truth. We're not trying to badmouth them. We're saying good things about us. So it's not a bad thing to do.
Yeah, I do agree on that there, and I think that's a good way to do it, and it does allow people to think about other things here. And I remember a day that Polar was going to be completely dead by March 21st was the date. And if my calendars are correct, it shows to be May 3rd. That's pretty crazy. So don't listen to every influencer you see out there either. That'll be a good little highlight of our day. So maybe actually I haven't seen him in a while. I could be blocked. Huh. Oh well.
Yeah, no, if you're talking about the same thing I'm talking about, what area you're talking about, because I go on his once in a while and talk about Polar every once in a while, make a comment on there as well.
Yeah, I might be blocked on his. I know Show is, so it is what it is. So don't listen to all your influencers out there. Some of them are great, others are whatever. So I think this organic grassroots growth is a better thing for the protocol itself.
Yeah. All right, that's all I had. Thanks, Chip.
All right, appreciate you, man. All right, hey, so to clear the record, I'm not blocked. I just unfollowed him at some point. So take that for what you will. All right, so Chicken XRP, you're the next one in here.
How's it going, man? So just a quick question for you. Is there ever a plan to change the reward rate on the nodes themselves? There is a particular project I mentioned that as they moved into a different version, I know they're a little bit different than you guys, but as they moved into the revenue stream, they did cut rewards in a sense. So I'm just wondering if you guys, as these revenues come in, if you guys ever plan down the road to affect or change the reward rate on the nodes themselves in any negative way?
Yeah, so that hasn't been discussed yet. I know Salty prefers not to, at least as long as possible. I'm not going to sit here and say that these current rewards are going to be how they are forever, no matter what, because I think that would be misleading. But I don't think it's a negative either necessarily. We've seen what happened when protocols reduce rewards without any real reason, just the fact that they cannot sustain them. And that does create a significant negative vibe to the industry and to the protocol itself. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Again, without speaking specifically about Polar, because this hasn't been brought up at this point by any means, so don't stress there. But I think the best way, and I've mentioned it earlier, is a revenue share system where there's a percentage kicked back proportionally to node holders. I think that is the way to make a node protocol truly and forever sustainable. And it is not quite as high daily ROI as we currently get. And, I think that's not a bad thing. We're not there yet. I wouldn't stress too much about that. Ideally, if we ever were to consider changing the rewards, we'd have a vote for it again. But even in the vote that we had back in February, I put on there very clearly that these rewards will have to change again at some point in the future. They're just simply going to have to. Now, if we happen to get to a point that we can fully sustain these 3-4% daily ROIs, then great, but that is a very hard thing to do. And, I'm not going to sit here and promise that forever, but there's also been no discussions on decreasing them. So I wouldn't stress too much about that, at least in the near term.
Okay, right on. So we have no plans as of yet, so just kind of sit tight for now then. Right on. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. All right. Fantastic questions today. So before I take this next one here, we're an hour and 10 minutes in. Same time, same place. 1 hour and 10 minutes ago, right here in Polar Discord on Tuesdays or whatever day it might be for you. 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. UTC, etc., etc., etc. Hit us up here every week. This is what we're here for. Next one here, Tala Imran. Once you accept it, you should be able to join in. There you go.
Hey, I just like to know what the story is behind Polar Guardian and what you're planning for it.
Just the general plans for Polar Guardian?
Yeah. How secure are you and yeah.
Yeah, so I did talk about that a little bit more in detail earlier, definitely towards the beginning of it. So feel free to go back and listen as well at the end, but I will go into it again here. So the Polar Guardian aspect is designed to be a security measure in DeFi for other protocols on the smart contract level. So you can offer things like an audit and a KYC and doxing and stuff like that, but that's not going to actually stop someone from becoming a bad actor for whatever reason and then stealing everything from the protocol, from the liquidity pool, from the treasury, whatever it might be. Polar Guardian is seeking to create something to which will prevent that human flaw, you could say, of you know, I don't want to get too much into the psychological thing of crime, but that human flaw, that human nature that is tempted to commit acts like that, if you can prevent that on the smart contract level, they literally cannot. They cannot rug. They can fail. That's a real thing. They could fail as a protocol, but they cannot rug and take away and run away into the sunset with all your money. So that's the general idea of Polar Guardian, is to bring a real aspect of security and a real aspect of genuine authenticity to DeFi that is not quite here just yet.
All right. And any idea how soon it will be releasing?
I'm sorry, it was kind of muffled out there. What did you say there?
How soon it will be released?
Okay, yeah. So that I'm going to leave to the core team to put out, because if I give a date and it gets delayed, that's not a good look. But I do know it's close enough that Salty's done a recent AMA with Spring nodes, because they're a Polar fork and they're going to be under Polar Guardian. We've done a recent AMA with James Pelton that'll be released here very soon. So we are close enough that we're willing to market it. I guess if that's a relatively fair point.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, hey, appreciate you, man. All right. Crypto Dreams. Bringing you up.
Hey,
What's going on, man?
appreciate it. It's another lovely day. Hey, would it be, well, I would like to hear everyone's opinion in the future, including mainly the core team's thoughts on possibly taxing transactions. Like, I think it's awesome that they don't right now. It was like one of the big things that stood out to me when I looked at the project the very first time. I was like, wow, they don't even tax transactions. That's awesome, right? However, like, looking at the project, I think it would help everybody to give up, a little 2-3% of your buy or sell to go back to redistribution and help, sustain, because I think everyone here is here for the long term, right? So I'm not saying that I want it to happen, but I am curious to hear what everybody else's thoughts are on something like that, just to help the project long term.
Sweet, yeah. So before I go into that, what is Cobra Command?
That's G.I. Joe, dude.
All right, so I have maybe I'll hit you up, but if you don't know, many people may not know, but I was Marine Corps for 5 years, and I have so many patches from all over the world.
Yeah.
So I might hit you up.
Awesome.
To exchange some things, and I have some police ones from around the United States as well. So maybe
definitely.
Anyway, so the buy
Cool.
sales tax aspect of it, that theory it's a good theory in and of itself. It does help, at least if people are going to sell or whatever every day, then it does give some back to the protocol itself. Now, quite frankly, I think if we were going to do that, we should have done it early, because now we're getting to a point where I would love to see our tokens start to get consideration on central exchanges, and you cannot have a buy or sales tax on a central exchange like KuCoin, like Crypto.com, like Coinbase, all those. You cannot, because they require you to change the slippage for them to transact, and they just can't do that on the central exchanges, or they choose not to. So at this point, I'll leave that still up to the core team. If they're far enough away, I'm not opposed to the theory. I think there's other ways to implement the tax structure that are just as just as beneficial. And I've kind of thought of some ideas that might be a little bit more engaging as far as the tax is concerned, because I do know a lot of people are worried about later this month when things like Everest go down to 9%, what's going to stop them from claiming out. And I think as we get closer to that there should be some consideration in how to mitigate that risk further, especially as we're already down. So that's a good question there. And you know, I know a couple of the core team are in here. I don't love the idea of a buy and sales tax, but it is a theory. I didn't kick you out either, so you just took off. That's cool though. So appreciate the question there. You're still in the AMA. Good, you didn't disconnect. So that's cool to think about. We do need to do something to figure out some sort of aspect of return to the protocol itself. All right, next one. So,
How are you, man? Thank you for the invitation to speak. I appreciate it.
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very good. I wanted to know, I was checking on the Twitter, and I wanted to know about this Polar Grants and Ventures program. If you could just touch up on that. I'm not sure if I missed it via the AMA, but I would just like to know a bit more about that.
Yeah, so the team hasn't put out a ton of information just yet. I do have a little bit of information here in front of me. So I think one way to consider that is to look at other protocols that have had VC funds, venture capital funds, and how those have benefited the credibility of the protocol as well as directly and indirectly. And I think that is a good place to start on how ours may be implemented as they're growing. I'm going to wait for them to put out more information before I go too much into detail there, but I think that's a general theory of it, is kind of like a VC.
Okay, that gives me a good enough idea as a aspiring polar forker. Eventually, I have a couple concepts. This actually makes the whole thing feel a lot better. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem at all. I appreciate your question. All right, cool. So we are now at officially an hour and 16 minutes in. I think we've covered most things. I do want to go through quickly to make sure I didn't miss anything in reference to the written Ask Me Anything questions. So if you are tuning in but unable to speak, or if this is a weird time zone for you, I would utilize our channel that's on our Discord that is called AMA Questions Weekly. And from there, you can ask questions that I'll answer here live once I could find the channel list. I know we have a zillion channels, so let me find it here real quick. And as I'm doing that, fortunately, I'm saved by the request to speak. So, Globo, I'm going to bring you on in here. You can unmute yourself, and then you will be live.
Hi.
What's going on?
All good. First time actually speak on an AMA. Thank you for bringing me in, and hi to everyone else. Just a quick question. Probably you spoke about it in the beginning of the AMA, and I'm sorry about it. I don't understand the reason why would a project, Polar or anyone else, would actually support another project like Spring Node. I mean, I understand it's a fork and all that, but won't this let's say if it's a business, your customer go to another business? That's my question. If you could just highlight a bit on that perspective, maybe I understand things wrong as well.
Yeah, sure. So that's a great thing. I've heard that quite a bit, especially when they were first getting that association with Spring. So the question is why would we directly help out a competitor, right? So there is a few reasons. One, Polar Guardian in and of itself is a business, right? So in order for us to implement Polar Guardian, we do need to have association with other protocols, because Polar Guardian is going to be what is securing their protocol on the contractual level. So I think that has to be a thing there. That being said, my personal opinion of business and how the general idea of capitalistic business works from an economic perspective, not necessarily the mainstream media perspective, is there needs to be enough demand and enough entry and enough competition for business to actually grow and thrive. And if we were to, for example, crush some of these smaller protocols, or let's say there was one of us out there that was just so big and so powerful that there was no more room for somebody else with new and innovative ideas to try to come up, that would be a major problem in DeFi itself. So I've said this countless times, and I'll continue to scream it from the rooftops, is we are not in a zero-sum game in crypto. we are nowhere near what we should be having. We're talking less than, by any estimates, 3 to 7% of the world invests in crypto currently. Even less than that's in DeFi. So we need to grow. We need good, smart people who are engaged in business in the real world to get into these things and to allow the space to then become a better space for us all. So I know I'm not going to bring up necessarily where the tension came up, but at one point there was some tension about a project that's similar to what things that we're building as well. I think that's a great thing. I think if a lot of the top players were building a very, very similar idea, similar business idea, that allows for true competition to then be put into place. And from economic theory, that's where the real developments come from. That's where the real growth comes from. And, me personally, just as a human, I'm an incredibly competitive person. And that's what got me to where I got into in life, because I'm always trying to make myself better and make myself more intelligent and learn more and be stronger and faster in the real world and, all that good stuff there, trying to read and develop. So I think competition is a great thing. And if we help bring each other up, it only betters the space as a whole, in my opinion anyway.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for answering my question. I do have my own doubts about it, but definitely I'll keep an eye out. I mean, at the end of the day, of course, I already joined the Discord and I'm trying to, from an investor point of view, trying to see what's the difference because they advertise themselves as they fixed something that Polar did not fix. And this is where basically what you're saying, we could try to coexist together, like you're saying, like a healthy competition. And that is where, that bar when they fix it, okay, we're doing something that we're fixing something that Polar couldn't fix. And this is why, for me, I was like a bit hesitant. I'm like, how can Polar, I would say, sponsor or advertise a project that says they're doing things better than them? That was the key point for me. But thank you so much for answering my question, and I'll leave the space for someone else.
Hey, I appreciate you. And I do know exactly which white paper you're talking about there. Hey, that's marketing. It is a business. It is what it is. That's on them. So I'm not too worried about it. I think we're doing pretty well here at Polar, and we will continue to do so. So as we are coming on to an hour and 22 minutes, I'll go through some of the questions that I have not yet answered on the AMA questions. Many of these have already been brought up or answered just as we've been talking and going through it. See, so the one question that I'll answer here first is that there's still no diamond hand bonus. This is from Espacuful, ESPACULARFUL. Is there a plan to give a reward 20% for not claiming for a certain amount of days, 15 days, etc.? I know that was teased early. I'm going to wait for the core team to give us some more information on that. With that being said, I know that they're working on it and they'll make a reasonable and good decision for the betterment of the protocol itself. So I'll kind of let them figure that stuff out there. Let's see. Next one there is no tapering sustainable for the project. If so, does the team consider applying this mechanism? I'm not entirely sure what no tapering means. It could either mean hard caps. This is from White Rice. This could mean hard caps. This could mean degrading, where at ROI the nodes degrade to a lower reward system. I think both of which would have their certain spaces for the node industry, and both of which have not been directly discussed, but I think they could have a play in the node industry itself, but that has not necessarily been discussed with Polar. Will you introduce buying lucky boxes with pending rewards? I know there's something on the contractual level with that. This is from Paris. Again, unfortunately, that is out of my realm of knowledge base. I think if they could implement a clean way to do it that isn't going to be too expensive, they certainly would be able to. So I would just keep an eye out on that. Creating lucky boxes with pending rewards would be a pretty cool thing. But right now, it's totally two different mechanisms. So I'll let them play on there. I'm not going to be the one to get into the code of anything. That's just not what I do. Next step for Polar. How does it stop depending on the MLM or Ponzi system and it becomes self-sustainable and not depending on more people forming nodes with 3 ups from KISP 12. I've answered a lot of that today. like I said, right now we are on the Ponzi economic theories until we get these other additional revenue streams. So that is a real thing. We're not hiding from it. We do need to get them implemented, but I do not currently see that as an issue because our demand for nodes is still very, very high. From Coency, so Power Guardian is great. How much cash will that provide per project? That is something that they are still working on the core team level, and I know that for sure it's going to be either case by case or some sort of a negotiation aspect that'll be determined for each individual, project and how in depth. I would assume there's going to be different levels to it at different prices, very similar to what like an audit or KYC would be. So I cannot sit here and say it's going to be X amount of dollars or X percentage or whatever it might be, because there are some legal implications to all that. But I would assume that we will get more information moving on forward with that industry there. Let's see. Have you ever heard about the 2FA wallet made by the FEG team? Well, shout out to FEG, which has an interesting name, which now is Feed Every Gorilla, so that's okay, but its original name is pretty hilarious. So that's some very, 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 very small project, very cool thing, but I know nothing about them. I've seen them in Reddit, so unfortunately I do not know too much about the 2FA wallet made by their team. From Lucky Dip, AMA question. After AVAX recovers, are there any plans to pair Polar with a stable like USDT, USDC to lower the price impact in bear markets? That is a very interesting theory. And I think instead of saying that we're going to move away from an AVAX liquidity pair, it might be a good idea to have additional liquidity pools. So we can have a pool of Polar to USDC, Polar to DAI, Polar to whatever, and that'll help offset a little bit of the issues that we're seeing, while also giving people additional rewards for supporting basically that liquidity pair that we're trying to implement. So that's something to consider moving forward. I think AVAX is at a point, I know someone mentioned earlier, by technical analysis it might go lower. I think we're very close to a rebound, back to where we should be. I'm not stressing too much about it, but I'm also not a super emotional investor. I don't really sell during downturns ever. And if you do, I would suggest looking into the bigger picture of things and realizing you make money in downturns. So that's my theory to AVAX itself. Any updates on the version 3.1 dates or sneak peek info from Sandman? Because he forgot to ask it here live. I'm still going to then wait on the information. I know Frey has teased that 3.1. He's been working on it. Frey is a magician on that side, so I would fear not, because we are in very good hands on the development of version 3.1 with Polar. What is the logical cap of Olympus Lucky Boxes? Will they be available in 2 to 3 months? That I cannot tell you right now. Cranks? Can't really pronounce your name, of course, but it is what it is here in the Discord AMA questions channel. What I will say is that they are going to be very limited, and I would not bank on them being available to be purchased in 2 to 3 months, but I cannot predict the future, unfortunately. I very much so wish I could. But I would say if you want a Olympus Lucky Box and you're able to get one without putting yourself in a financial danger, then I would assume sooner is probably better for those sort of things. That's about another project. I do appreciate the question, Crypto Craig, but I'm not, okay, so I can go into that a little bit. So another project has a gasless blockchain, so creating your own blockchain, stuff like that. That has been in a discussion. I think that's a good theory, and we do look at what other projects do and see how we can implement that best to Polar and maybe even make it better from there. But it's not in the direct plan here as we're sitting here today. Janrick23, quick question. Is Polar Guardian basically on the Avalanche network? So as of right now, that is the way it's written, and the papers that I have in front of me, is it is designed to work on the Avalanche network and the Avalanche blockchain. I assume that could very likely be expanded in the future, but since Polar is on the Avalanche blockchain, that is going to be the initial focus at the very least. But contracts are contracts and coding is coding, so I assume that they can expand that in the future if and when wanted and needed, to be perfectly honest. And someone else just brought up gasless blockchain. Where does that money come from? I don't know. You can go ask these other projects. I haven't personally been involved in anyone that does it. This is from Zay Drez. Once there are no more NFTs to buy, how will new investors join up? What is the incentive? So as of right now, we are in a soft cap system where we've been slowly and methodically increasing the different node tiers. Particularly, there are less limitations for smaller tiers, and then there are more limitations for higher tiers. That's generally how it goes for pretty obvious reasons due to emissions. But in the theory of a hard cap, what does that do? That creates our NFTs like normal NFTs at that point, but that have utility. So you are going to have, and again, this is kind of speculative. Let's say that every NFT is hard cap today. Let's just say this theoretical world in whatever project that we're working on. But we do have our own marketplace. So we could say, hey, you can sell and buy these things on our marketplace for this floor price, and then they can be an auction. Or you can sell them for a buy now price above the floor price, or whatever it might be. And then from there would be a royalty kickback either to the protocol, to the previous owner, to whatever it might be. That's generally how NFTs work from the NFT marketplace itself. And it's actually a pretty decent system. Where NFTs happen to fail is that they'll lose utility and then they'll lose hype, or they won't have utility and then they'll lose hype. So then nobody wants them anymore. So what I would highly suggest is we are in a soft cap period. If you're able to compound safely, like I mentioned earlier, not financial advice, of course, but if you're able to get in there and support the protocol, I think having more of these NFTs will be a better thing in the long term as we develop these other aspects of the protocol. I think that's a fair assessment, and that's what I've been leaning forward to when I then create additional nodes every Saturday like clockwork. So that was a lot of talking, and I felt like I was on a radio show. So let me see, I've been tagged in one more thing in general, but we are an hour and 32 minutes in with no more requests to speak, and our numbers are plummeting from over 200 to 158. So at some point here pretty soon, I am going to come to a close. I'm just going to make sure I did not miss anything from the greatest community alive. Let's see, I think that covers just about everything that we need here. I know Apollo 2 is typing, so I will filibuster for just a few more seconds. But while I'm doing that, huge shout out to everyone who joined in on our Polar AMA Weekly this Tuesday at this time, 1 hour and 32 minutes ago today. So I think this was a very productive one, especially for a slower news week and a down market. You guys have been incredible. It is great to see how the community's responded, not only to the down market, but to just the general aspects of our vision and the protocol itself. Shout out to the core team for the hard work in the back end. I know they're probably dead exhausted, to be perfectly honest, from everything that they're doing on the back end. So maybe they're not on the Discord as much, but that's my job and that's the community team's job to be in here, giving you guys that outlet to talk to every day, no matter what. So shout out to those guys. Shout out to the community as we keep building this here. On Apollo 2, let's add a fantasy football league with nodes and polar prizes. That gives me some ideas on Paulo, because you're touching my two fancies there with fantasy football and prizes. So we'll get into some of that stuff later. I know we invested. I'll go into this. We invested in a chain bet last week. So if you guys did tune into that AMA with chain bet, incredible AMA. Great project that they're working on there. I know they're still in their pre-sale. We put 25,000 into their pre-sale. So we are going to become more involved with ChainBet as we move forward. Amazing protocol. I look forward to being able to utilize some of my Polar tokens to get on them table gamings in that sports betting world, because that is my true hobby in life, beyond some of the other aspects, is that gambling side. For better or worse, I love it. So I will say I did scroll down. I see Yanta, our Yanta, and then I see another PFP that looks like Yanta, but it's not him. So I got my eyes on you, Ghost. Hopefully you're a good human with just the shout out to the PFP of Yanta. All right, so that's going to bring us to the conclusion of this weekly Polar AMA. On Tuesday, start at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. UTC, same time, same place, here in our Discord. Be a friend, tell the world, shout us out. We were up to 230 or so this week. Let's get that higher next week. And we look forward to talking with you guys throughout the week as well. Utilize that channel to ask questions that I can answer with next week as we continue to move this discussion forward and keep building on the polar side. Appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your week.